Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really fundamental question.
Mhm.
Yeah, one I think a lot of people probably wonder about. Can a nation actually be legitimate if it's not, a recognized state?
Ah, right. Or even, what makes a nation legitimate? It's a deep one.
Exactly. And when we say nation here, we're not just talking about countries on a map.
No, it's more about a distinct people, right?
Mhm.
Culture, history.
Yes, their own identity, maybe a right to self-govern, even if no one else officially stamps it approved.
It's a critical distinction. And today, we're zoning in on the Mayawi Nation.
That's the plan.
Our mission, really, in this deep dive is to unpack the facts, the law, the history,
Mm.
everything that affirms their status.
And this isn't just about, feelings or pride.
Not at all. It's about concrete evidence.
Yeah.
Facts, law, stuff you can point to in the sources.
And speaking of sources, we've really dug into some foundational stuff
Yeah, legal documents, international agreements.
and some colonial records that are, frankly, pretty surprising.
They really are.
Our goal here is to pull out the most important takeaways for you. A shortcut, kind of, to getting up to speed on something that's often misunderstood.
Prepare for some aha moments, I think.
I definitely had a few. Okay, so let's start with the legal foundation. This idea often gets missed.
The power of treaties.
Exactly. The sheer legal weight they carry. I mean, look at the U.S. Constitution, Article 6, it says right there.
Treaties made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land.
Supreme law, that's not just a suggestion, is it?
Not even close. It means these treaties, especially the ones dealing with indigenous rights, they aren't just ceremonial papers.
They're binding.
Binding law,
Yeah.
just as powerful as federal statutes. It's absolutely fundamental to their legal standing.
Wow. I mean, I knew treaties were important, but supreme law, that really puts it in sharp focus.
It does.
So how does this play out globally? Is it just a U.S. thing, or does this legal weight travel?
Oh, it absolutely travels. When countries like the U.S. sign international agreements.
Like UNDRP, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Exactly. Or ILO Convention 169, which is specifically about indigenous and tribal peoples' rights, and it's a binding treaty.
Okay.
Well, by signing or affirming these, countries take on legal, ethical, and historical obligations.
Towards native nations.
Yes, implicitly recognizing those treaty obligations.
Yeah.
And you see this ripple effect. Canada, Colombia, Brazil, even parts of the EU have frameworks acknowledging indigenous rights.
So understanding this legal bedrock, this supreme law idea, that's step one.
It's crucial. It sets the stage for understanding how indigenous nations, like the Mayawi Nation, derive their standing.
So it's not just wishful thinking, it's actually written into the law.
Precisely. A legal foundation that's often just completely overlooked.
Okay, so we have these powerful international legal frameworks. How do they lock on to the Mayawi Nation
Well,
specifically?
what makes them fit?
Yeah, what are the criteria under these laws like ILO 169 and UNDRIP that make their case?
Well, under those very frameworks and decades of indigenous law precedent, the Mayawi Nation ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Without question.
Okay, what are the boxes?
There are four key criteria, really clear ones. First, a distinct culture.
Sure.
Second, a traceable ancestry.
Got it.
Third, a history of self-governance.
Mm-hmm.
And fourth, documented displacement, specifically because of colonization.
That sounds pretty comprehensive. Strong criteria.
Very.
But, I can imagine someone listening thinking, okay, but is this Mayawi Nation thing like a new idea, something recent?
That's a common misconception. But the sources show something else entirely.
What's that?
The Mayawi Nation isn't new. Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a direct continuation of the Taíno and Arawak civilizations.
The ancestral peoples.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. The colonial powers themselves.
Yeah.
They recognized these ancestors as sovereign nations back then.
They did.
Through trade, diplomatic relations. They dealt with them as distinct entities. It's in their own records.
So it's not about arguing for a new right.
No. It's about affirming a right that already existed, that was acknowledged, and that endures.
That's fascinating. So it's continuity. That really clarifies how the Mayawi Nation fits those international standards. It's not out of the blue.
Not at all. It makes their claim to legitimacy incredibly clear based on established principles.
Okay, this next part.
Hmm.
For me, this was the real eye-opener, the part that made me go, whoa!
Ah, the colonial records themselves.
Yes, because the common story is, colonizers arrived, flattened everything, ignored everyone.
Like the steamroller narrative.
But you're saying their own records, the colonizers' records, prove something different, undeniably.
That's exactly right. This is where the evidence just becomes, well, Irrefutable. You look at the actual documents.
From when?
We're talking 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, Spain, Portugal.
And what do they show?
They show these powers did not just treat the Taíno like, animals or obstacles.
No.
No, they treated them as a nation.
A nation. Seriously, what does that look like on paper?
It's pretty astonishing. The records detailed trade negotiations.
Oh.
Formal interactions are recorded. They acknowledge specific chiefs, leaders by name.
Wow.
They recognized territories. They documented diplomatic exchanges. It's all there.
So the implication of that is huge, isn't it?
It's critical. Once a nation is acknowledged like that, especially in writing by other international powers,
Yeah.
you can't just legally pretend it didn't happen later.
You can't erase it from legal memory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Taíno people were absorbed, sure. Displaced, scattered by colonization,
Yeah.
devastating impacts.
But
But their fundamental status as a nation, that was never legally undone. The colonizers themselves unintentionally wrote the proof of indigenous sovereignty into history.
binding their own recognition, that's
Yeah.
quite the paradox.
It is. The records of conquest became the records of nationhood.
It really makes you question the standard historical narrative, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So, okay, this historical acknowledgement, this legal permanence, how does that bridge to today?
It's the absolute cornerstone of the modern revival. It's the foundation.
And that revival is being led.
Yes, through the really dedicated, visionary work of Chief Samael Ojeda Mercado, Chief Winterhawk.
Okay.
He's taking that scattered memory, that documented legal legacy, and actively rebuilding it.
Into a living, breathing nation.
A sovereign nation functioning in the modern world. It's quite remarkable.
Okay, let's talk about Chief Ojeda then, because his leadership sounds different.
It is. It's something rare, I think.
Not about chasing the spotlight or, personal glory.
No, not at all. His impact isn't from headlines. It comes from hard, quiet work, mostly behind the scenes.
Like what kind of work?
Navigating these really complex legal channels, advocating diplomatically for his people. It's painstaking stuff.
And practical impact, is it just theoretical?
Oh no, far from it. It's very practical. He's actively providing for over 3,500 citizens.
Providing what?
Essentials, support, while also fiercely preserving their cultural identity. He's building actual systems.
Systems,
Right.
like infrastructure.
Yes, real-life systems. Education programs, healthcare initiatives, spiritual guidance structures, even community protection. Tangible things.
That's incredible. So he's not just asserting rights, he's building the nation from the ground up.
Exactly. Laying down the foundations, the infrastructure for a self-determining future.
What's the long-term thinking there, the strategy behind it?
What's really strategic, I think, is his focus on ensuring the Mayawi nation stands on solid legal ground.
Not just emotion or history alone.
Right. Emotion and history are vital, but the legal foundations are what guarantee long-term viability, long-term impact.
So he's anchoring the present reality in that historical and legal legitimacy we talked about.
Precisely. It's a powerful example of how that legitimacy is actively championed and sustained today through dedicated strategic leadership.
Wrapping this up, what really hits me from this deep dive is it's like a punch of reality.
Oh, so?
You just can't erase a people from a document once it's written. You can't undo a treaty just by being silent about it.
No, you can't.
And you can't deny what history itself has already recorded. It's there.
That's the core of it. The Mayawi nation isn't like asking for permission to exist.
Or waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. It's already here. It's recognized by law. It's recognized by history, and crucially by its living descendants.
Their rights, their identity, they're not opinions.
They are facts, they are law, and they are undeniably rising.
So, building on everything we've unpacked about the Mayawi nation, here's something to maybe chew on.
Okay.
How do these enduring legal principles, treaty obligations, historical recognition, how do they really challenge our modern way of thinking? Our focus on statehood as the only definition of a legitimate nation or sovereignty.
That's a big question, especially in a world obsessed with UN membership and borders on a map.
Right. And what could this mean for potentially countless other indigenous peoples around the globe who are seeking similar recognition based on similar histories and legal grounds?
It certainly opens up a lot to think about regarding what sovereignty truly means and how history continues to shape our present legal realities.